Hello, and welcome to our Ready for Rome orientation webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I am the community manager at the Italia Pass community online. And I'm joined by Lorian Filon, who is our Italia Pass Primo Italy experience specialist. And what that means is that she works with Italia Pass Primo members to help them plan itineraries, book their travel, and answer all their travel questions. And we'll talk a little bit about Italia Pass Primo as we go through today's webinar. I've been living in Rome for over 20 years now, so I'm really happy to share some tips and information with you about my adopted city. And Lorian will also be sharing with you lots of information about technical things, traveling here in Rome. And so yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at when you arrive at Fiumicino Airport, how you can get into the city center. We're going to talk about our lounge for Italia Pass Primo customers and Rail-Aid customers at Rome's Termini train station. I'll give you an overview of how to manage on the public transport system here in Rome. I'll also talk to you a little bit about some fun stuff, eating out, local customs, the menus, and things like that here in Rome. We will also give you some information about how you can get a complimentary entry into the Colosseum and $100 off of a tour of the Vatican or a Rome walking tour. I'd also like to share with you a few tips about how to avoid typical tourist traps, and then a few more local tips about Rome. And then at the very end, we'll open it to a live Q&A. We will use the Q&A functionality here in Zoom so that if you feel like typing in a live question, you will be able to have that ability to do that at the end of this webinar, and we will answer your questions live. And if there's any questions we don't know the answer to right away, we will research those for you, and I will get back to you in our online community with the answers. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Lorian, who's going to get started talking about arrival at Fiumicino Airport, which is where most people arrive, and how to get into the city.
Perfect. Thank you, Shelley. So, hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. So, now that you've landed at FCO Airport, you have a few options to get to the center of Rome. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal. The very first option you have is to reach Roma Termini, which is the main train station in Rome, by train. So there are two types of train that you can take. The first one is the Leonardo Express, which is the direct train to Termini station, and it costs $16 on Italia Rail. And the second one is a regional train. So that's the more local train, and it'll get you to the smaller stations in Rome, which are Trastevere and Ostiense, and it's about $10 on Italia Rail. The other option you have is you can take a taxi. You can take those outside of the terminal with a fixed rate of 50 euros. I highly suggest following the signs to the taxi stand and not going with anyone inside of the terminal that's trying to lure you or call out to you. That's just to make sure that you get into an official taxi and that you get the offer, the fixed rate I mentioned, and you don't fall into any scams or anything like that. Other options include taking the shuttle bus. And we do offer private transfers that would take you straight to your accommodations in Rome instead of the train station. And you can book those either on the Italia Tours website or through your dedicated Italy experience specialist like myself, if you're a Primo member with us. Perfect. So now, in terms of car rental, I think that's the next information. Yes, perfect. So that's a question that comes up a lot, is if you should rent a car during your trip. If you know that you're going to be exploring some of the more remote areas in Tuscany, for example, renting a car can be a great option, but I don't recommend renting a car if you're only going to be visiting the major cities like Florence, Venice, Rome, Milan. The best way to navigate between these locations is usually by train, and most of these cities are very strict rules about car traffic, and it can be really tricky to get a permit to enter them, park, and operate a car within the city walls. So if you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on Italia Drive, and you'd benefit from a $10 discount as a Primo member, which you can redeem after your booking. As to another option, there's another great perk of being a member. It's the access to the Italia Pass Lounge, which is located in the Roma Termini station. So let's say you have some free time before or after booking a train, boarding a train, or you're waiting for your hotel check-in time. What's great is you can relax in the lounge, and we offer free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments, and also free luggage storage during opening hours. And additionally, what's great is our lounge host can answer any questions you have about your trip. And all you need to do to access the lounge is to book your complimentary visit beforehand. And now I'll hand it over to Shelly for the next piece of information on your trip.
Okay, great. Thank you. I did see that one of our participants or one of our attendees today raised a hand, and I will just encourage you at the end, we will take questions. So we're going to go through all of our slides, and then at the very end, feel free to, I'll explain how you can join in and ask questions. So right now I'm going to talk about the public transport system here in Rome. It is called ATAC. That's the name of the company. There are three ways or three methods of public transport that we have here in Rome. We have above ground buses. We have an underground system or subway, which is known as the metro because that's short for metropolitana. And there are a few trams as well. Tickets are quite reasonable compared to other European capitals. They cost €1.50 and they are time limited tickets. So what that means is once you validate your first ride, so you're going to buy a ticket and you're going to either swipe the ticket on a bus or pass through the turnstile at the metro, that's when the time starts and you have 100 minutes for your journey. So you can travel on any of the methods of public transport within that 100-minute period. With one exception, you only get one metro ride. So the subway system here in Rome is quite easy to navigate because we only have two lines. We have the A line and the B line, and they only cross at one spot, and that's Rome's Termini train station. So that one metro ride does include a transfer if you want to transfer from the A line to the B line. Just keep in mind that once you leave the station, that ticket that you have is no longer valid for a metro ride. However, it is still valid up to the 100-minute time limit. One very convenient way to travel on the metro is with the tap and go system that a lot of large cities have nowadays. You can use a contactless payment method to pass through the turnstiles. So you can use the contactless payment on your cell phone or a credit or debit card. Just keep in mind that you need to have one payment method for each rider. You can't use the same payment method for multiple riders because that payment method does count as your ticket. So you can tap right through the turnstiles and that card counts as your ticket. There are a few options. If you think you're going to be using a lot of public transport, you can get unlimited ride passes for 24 hours, 48 hours, or 72 hours. I've calculated here the minimum number of rides you would need to take in order for it to be worthwhile. If you decide you want to get one of these passes, those are things that you can buy at either the subway stations have ticket offices, or you can get them at a machine. The machines are also in the subway stations. Or you can get it at a tobacconist shop, which is called tabaccheria, and you can identify those because they'll have a T over the door. Or at newsstands, you can also buy public transport tickets. One bus I did want to particularly point out to you to be aware of as you're traveling through Rome is one that's very, very convenient for tourists, but also something to be aware of because since it's such a touristy kind of bus that serves tourists, it's also a target for pickpockets. So bus 64 is very convenient because it starts at Termini and ends at the Vatican. So it basically crosses the entire historic center. But I do want to let you know that if you are on bus 64, especially in the high season in the summer, generally it's going to be very crowded. So make sure that if you have your belongings, like say in a crossbody bag, you have your arm on your bag. Or for men, if you carry a wallet, make sure that wallet is like in your front pocket. You have your hand on your wallet. Now, I don't say this to make you feel paranoid at all. Rome is an extremely safe city. Violent crime is not an issue in our historic center, in our city. We are very safe, except for petty crime is an issue with tourists. But like I said, I've been here for over 20 years. I am happy to say I've never been pickpocketed. And the reason for that is because I'm just not an easy target. So as long as you look like you're aware of your belongings and you look like you know where you're going, you don't look distracted, you're not going to be an easy target. So just be aware of your surroundings and you should be just fine. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the fun stuff about eating out, which I'm hoping that you're going to get to eat a lot of our wonderful food here in Rome. A couple of things that are different here in Rome that you may be not used to, say if back home is say the United States or Canada. our restaurant eating times are a little bit later than you might expect. So we eat lunch starting generally around 1 p.m. and we eat dinner a little bit later, around 8 p.m. or even 8:30. So if you're going to make reservations at a non-touristy restaurant that doesn't cater necessarily to tourists, these are the times that locals eat. One thing I wanted to mention about the check that sometimes people ask me about is that here in Rome, and generally speaking in Italy, it's not like, let's say in the United States, where your waiter or your waitress will, when you're done with your meal, will just simply bring your check and say, okay, I'll get this when you're ready. What happens here is, because eating out is such a cultural moment for family and friends to get together and spend time together, it's considered respectful to not bring the check, because the wait staff doesn't want you to feel like you're being pushed out. They want to give you all the time that you want or need. Once you have that table, that's your table. This is generally speaking. If you're at a very I don't know, busy tourist restaurant, they may say to you, look, we have two seatings. We have a first seating and a second seating. But generally speaking, once you have your table, that table is yours for the rest of the evening. So that being the case, if you're in a hurry or you're ready to leave and you're wondering why your check is not being brought to the table, that's probably the reason why. They're probably trying to be respectful and not interrupt you and not make you feel like you're being pushed out. So I've written here how to ask, or at least the word for the check is il conto. And so you just simply flag your waitstaff over and ask them for the conto, and they'll be happy to bring that to you. One other thing that a lot of people ask about is tipping. Do I need to leave a tip? If so, how much do I need to leave? So what's different here is that waitstaff here is paid a regular salary. They do not work for tips. So it's uncommon to leave tips. And if you do leave a tip, or let's say if a local leaves a tip, then it's generally going to be, let's say, around €1 per person. I have plenty of local friends who never leave tips in restaurants. And if they're very happy with the service, they may leave €1 each. So this may feel uncomfortable coming from a culture where where 20% is normal, but here in Rome, don't feel pressured or uncomfortable for not leaving a tip, because it's just not part of the local dining culture. Just quickly about menus. The way that the menus are set up here are generally divided into appetizers and then a primo and a secondo. So appetizers are the antipasto, and then the primo is generally your pasta and your rice dishes, and the secondo is going to be your meat dishes. You don't have to order all of them. You can order whatever you want. If, let's say, a few people at your table want a first course and other people do not want a first course and they want a second course, you can also tell the waitstaff to bring it all out together so you can all eat together. So you can kind of customize that to how you want. In terms of pizza, there's a couple different ways that we eat pizza here. In a pizzeria, which is a pizza-based restaurant, we eat our pizzas. We each get an individual pizza, and the toppings are already kind of standardized on the menu. So you don't get one pizza for the table and everyone chooses their toppings. You're going to look at the menu, choose the pizza with the pre-standardized toppings that you like or that sound good to you, and then you'll get your pizza individually. It will not be cut. It's a very thin crust. Roman pizza is a very thin crust. Naples pizza is a thicker crust. So being that it's a thin crust, it's pretty easy to eat one entire pizza, even though it might sound like a lot. Something that's common here in Rome, as you see in the picture in the top center, we do fried foods as appetizers in a pizza restaurant. So something you'll find native to Rome is a supplì, which is that fried rice ball you see. It's a fried rice ball with melted mozzarella in the middle, and it has rice with a meat sauce. It's quite good. It's also a nice street food. And so speaking of street food, here I've written al taglio. You can get pizza walking around the city in these shops called pizza al taglio. It's sold by the weight. So you'll see the pizza in glass cases. It's not pre-cut. You're going to indicate to the person how much you want, and then they will weigh it, and then you'll pay for that pizza by the weight. And the different kinds of pizzas have different prices depending on what their toppings are. And I wrote there forno a legna, that means wood-fired pizza. So in the pizzeria, a lot of the pizzeria here have wood-fired pizza ovens. And then if you want to eat breakfast like a local, we drink a cappuccino for breakfast, and we eat a cornetto, which is a croissant, but it's different than a French croissant. It's not a butter-based croissant. It's lighter than that. And generally speaking, the going rate I pay $2.10 in my neighborhood, which is outside the city center. I think a reasonable price downtown, maybe $2.50 standing up at the bar, maybe $3 on the high end, but it's a very reasonable breakfast, especially if you're used to getting a Starbucks and paying a lot of money for just a coffee. The way it works is you do pay first at the register, and then you move over to the counter and you order with your receipt. Bring your receipt over and then tell the barista what you ordered, and they will make it for you. And they'll get your cornetto probably on the other side where the pastries are. Here we don't necessarily leave a tip. You can leave 10 cents or 20 cents if you feel like it. But the important thing is that you stand up at the bar. That's how we take our coffee, standing up. But sometimes there's tables. And if you see tables and you want to take your coffee and your cornetto or whatever you order to a table, you're generally welcome to do that, but do double check, because some bars, especially in the historic center where it's very touristy, they're going to charge a supplement for you to sit at the table. Or sometimes they'll have table service and they want you to sit at the table and they're going to come serve you at the table. So just double check before you sit down, because you don't want any surprises where they come at you and say, wait, you're not allowed to sit here. I wrote here Tazza d'Oro and Sant'Eustachio because those are two of the most famous espresso places and coffee places downtown. In that photo you see on the right, that's me holding up what's called a granita al caffè. So it's like a coffee slushy. I believe that there's like maybe up to 5 espressi would be the plural, espressos in that coffee slushy. And that is a homemade whipped cream. It is a bomba, as they would say here. It's a bomb. It's a caffeine bomb. It's right over by the Pantheon. That's Tazza d'Oro. You're going to get all this information at the end. I have a list of all these things I'm going to be talking about. But that's a really fun and unique way to get your caffeine in the summer. It's quite cold and refreshing. And not too far from the Pantheon, there is Sant'Eustachio, which is also another very famous espresso. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Lorian to tell you a little bit about a couple of opportunities for seeing the sites.
So now for all the exciting sites that you'll get to see during your stay in Rome. So as a Primo member, you do get, if you become a Primo member with us, you do get a free skip the line ticket of a $22 value. That gives you access to the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and the Palatine Hill. We do offer a lot of different tours of Rome. So we have the Vatican, different tours of the Vatican, the Colosseum, to which we can credit your free entrance ticket, as well as the walking tour of the rest of Rome that includes places like Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, Pantheon, Trevi Fountain. I recommend taking a look at a tour that's called the Rome Tour Pass. That is if you're spending over 2 days in Rome. And those 3 tours that include the Vatican, Colosseum, and the walking tour can be spread out over multiple days. So it's a really great way to see all of Rome. Our members do get $100 off on the first tour booking, and then you would get 10% off of any subsequent tour that you book. These experiences can be booked on italiatours.com, or you can email us. And if you have any questions or need help booking these, we'll be happy to.
Okay. And now I'm going to tell you a few of my tips about how to avoid tourist traps here in Rome. So one of the first things, and you may already know this, but here in Rome, Italian restaurants, unless it's some sort of international franchise or something like that, which is not very common, but restaurant menus don't have pictures on them. So in the historic center, if you see a lot of these touristy restaurants, they're going to have pictures on the menu. That's kind of a tip-off that that's more tourist oriented and not a local place where locals would go. Another real red flag is if you've got promoters out in front of the restaurant trying to usher you inside. Any local Italian restaurant has no need to have a promoter ushering people inside. So not that you're going to have necessarily bad food, but you can have a much more authentic experience if you avoid these types of restaurants. And you're going to find those mostly in the highly populated tourist centers. So around the Colosseum, the Pantheon, Piazza Navona, and these types of places. Next, as you see in this photo on the bottom right, you see a gentleman selling roses. First, let me talk about the gladiators at the Colosseum. So souvenir photos. So something that you might see, talking about the photo in the upper center, which I took outside of Trastevere, it looks like a gladiator going home there with his Samsonite suitcase. He was coming home from the Colosseum, and so you have a lot of these dressed up as gladiators in front of the Colosseum, and they are there to take tourist photos. And they may come across like they just want to be friendly, but be aware that these are how these people make their livelihood, and the prices aren't regulated or anything. So if you do decide you want to have a photo with one of these gladiators, just agree on the price before you snap that photo so you can avoid any unpleasant surprises or harassment. I don't know. I've never had one photo taken with them, but this is something people have told me. And then speaking of the roses, it's kind of another touristy thing. You're going to see a lot of these rose sellers downtown in the tourist areas. And a lot of times they're going to try to maybe just give you the rose and say, no, this is a gift. Here you go. Of course, it's not a gift. They want you to pay. And so to avoid these kind of uncomfortable situations, it's best to just either ignore them or pass them by. Unless you want to purchase a rose, in which case just make sure you know what the price is before you accept that. Gelato. So ice cream is called gelato here. Well, it's not really ice cream. It's quite different. It's an Italian form of ice cream, which is different and delicious. And I hope you're going to try a lot of it when you come and visit here in Rome. Couple things to look out for. In a lot of the tourist areas, you're going to see these, as in the photo, you're going to see these overflowing tubs. And that's a sure tip off that that's not a natural gelato. They've whipped up a lot of air in there. And the authentic gelato shops would never have gelato piling over the edges of the tubs like that. Another tip off is if you're seeing these overly bright colors, natural gelato is not overly bright. That's artificial color. So you're going to want to avoid that. Those are my gelato tips. Next, just a few more local tips I want to share with you. So you see this fountain in the center, in the upper center photo. We have these fountains all over Rome. They're called nazzoni, which means a big nose, because it's referring to how the spigot has this water flowing constantly. It's a constant stream of water that comes from deep underground. It's super cold, so it's the perfect way to refill your water bottle while you're going around the city. You don't need to use plastic. You don't have to purchase an overpriced water bottle. Just refill your bottle. I'm going to put in my list of resources an app that I know of that actually shows the locations of all these fountains downtown. There's thousands of them throughout the city of Rome. So that will give you an easy way to refill, especially in these really hot summer temperatures. I love to tell people to go to Villa Borghese. It's a large outdoor public park, and you can take a picnic lunch there. You can rent what's called a risciò, which is what you see in this photo, where you can get one of these pedal bikes rented by the hour. You can get it for 4 people, and you can see even some little kids squeezed there up in the front. You can get it for 2 people. It's really fun. There's just a lot of space there. It's right next to the Rome Zoo. And you can take pictures at what's called the Pincio Terrace. So it's this kind of terrace that overlooks Piazza del Popolo. You can see it in the background there with St. Peter's Dome. And you're going to get some spectacular photos of the entire panorama of the city from there. And I will include that on my list, the location of Pincio Terrace. One last thing is have an aperitivo. This is a fun Italian tradition that you may or may not be aware of. You'll see a lot at times in photos, this Aperol Spritz that you might have seen here in Italy, and you see it in this photo here. You can have this before dinner drink. We generally start aperitivo around 6:30. This place that I have the photo of is Meccanismo. I will put a link there. They have a fantastic aperitivo. It's 10 euros. You get all these munchies. You can have a non-alcoholic drink, an alcoholic drink, but it's just a really nice local tradition, a before dinner tradition. And sometimes the aperitivo is so abundant that it becomes like dinner. So that's one of my local tips for you. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Lorianne to tell you about the Borgia Gallery.
Perfect. So last but not least, our newest member benefit is the access to the Borgia Gallery, which is one of the only places in the city that you'll be able to access the original ancient Roman street level. And so during your visit to the gallery, you'll be hearing about the history of the Borgia family, and you'll get a really unique look into the Roman Renaissance. Additionally, your visit is paired with a wine tasting and aperitivo, which Shelley just mentioned is a great way to experience the local food culture. And it's all led by our expert sommelier. This is only accessible to our members, and it's truly, truly one of a kind experience. So I do recommend that you take advantage of that on your trip.
Okay, So that concludes the information part of our webinar. And like I said, I'm going to put all the resources that we talked about in a list on our community. It's at italiapass.com. Just simply click community. You're going to go over to the Ready for Rome orientation under Italy travel planning, and you'll find all the resources. The ItaliaPass community is a free traveler community. I manage the community, so if you have any questions, even after our Q&A session right now, feel free to come on over and ask anytime. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for questions. So the way you can ask questions is in the Q&A icon. You see the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. I see we already have a couple of questions lined up. So just feel free to type those in and we're going to try to work through them. So let me go back to the first one. Okay, so this is about luggage storage. We do have luggage storage at our lounge, at our Italia Pass lounge at Rome Termini. Yes, the luggage store, it says, is the luggage storage large enough to hold a large 30-inch suitcase? Yes, we've got plenty of room. We've got plenty of room for your luggage, so that is no problem.
The only thing to keep in mind is it needs to be, you need to make a booking. It's free for members, but it's important to make a booking ahead of time so they can be expecting you and your luggage when the time comes.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one. It says, is it very hot during the afternoon? Could you recommend times of the day to stay indoors and avoid venturing out for sightseeing? Absolutely. Rome, I think July is, for me, has always been the hottest month in Rome. So you can kind of do the siesta in the afternoon. I think if you can get out real early and, you know, do your major sightseeing in the kind of early morning, I would have lunch, you know, between one, maybe you do your lunch at 1, and then in the afternoon, I would say between 2 and 4, even maybe 2 to 5. That's your good time to kind of stay indoors, or I don't know, go somewhere that's air conditioned, one of your sites that you're going to be at. I do think the hottest times of the day are generally, as they say, between 10 and 2, but you know, you're going to probably want to stay indoors during the lunch hour and late afternoon. Do you want to take the next one, Lorianne?
Yes. How much is the Primo Pass? So it's $99 and it's for an entire year, so it doesn't automatically renew, but you do get access to all the benefits we mentioned. So that's the pre-Coliseum ticket, the rebates for the tours and the train tickets and much more. If you go on into italiapass.com and where you're going to see the community, there's all of the information on there as well.
Okay, the next one just simply says public restrooms, question mark. So are there public restrooms? They're few and far between. Generally speaking, if you need a public restroom, you're going to maybe duck into a coffee bar. And so you're going to want to buy maybe a bottle of water, a pack of gum, and those are going to be your best bet for a public restroom. I would recommend you carry with you a little pack of Kleenex. Toilet paper is scarce. But we don't, like, for example, in Amsterdam, they have lots of public restrooms. They're pay restrooms. They're very clean. That's not really a common thing here in Rome. So yeah, use the coffee bars if you need to duck into a public restroom.
If you buy the Prima Pass now, what days of the Borgia tour? So you can check on italiatours.com. They have the dates that are available right now. If you're not quite sure if you want to buy the pass and you just want it for the Borgia tour, you can check the dates on there. You'll see it there.
Yeah.
And
sorry, no, go ahead. I was just going to say right now it's running every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, but that could be subject to change. So, but generally speaking, we have it up and running 3 days a week at this time. So you should be able to find a day, even if you're only in Rome for a day or two. That was the idea behind it, to offer it.
And if you don't see it there quite yet, it's because the dates haven't been released for later in the year, but they will be, in July or August, depending on where you're traveling. And can we add the extra tours last minute? I don't recommend it, especially for Rome. It's very busy, very, very in demand. So depending if you're traveling during the high season, which is at least until September, if not mid-October, do book your tours as soon as you know you want them. That's very important if you want to ensure that you have the spots and the dates that you want.
I'll let you take this one. This is a technical rail question, or rail expert here.
Yeah, so you do need to check in. It's very easy. So once you get your tickets by email, which should be sent to you. You'll get a link that says check-in for your tickets. I think generally the check-in opens about a minimum of 12 hours before your train, but I think they've slightly changed it and you might be able to check in right away. But either way, that link in your email is where you're going to be able to check in. And once you've checked in, you cannot change or you cannot change your train times or dates. So do keep that in mind that once you're checked in, it's locked in, but you have to check in before you board the train.
Okay, it says you mentioned ordering pizza by weight at the Al Taglio. What is a common weight? You know, that's a good question. I couldn't even tell you like the actual weight. I could tell you the amount. I would have to show you but you know, generally like it's square pizza, so I don't know. I mean, of course, everything's kilograms here too. I mean, I'd have to tell you, 200 grams, 300 grams. I could probably do better by telling you what an average price is. So I think, let's say two, palm-sized squares of pizza, generally speaking, you're probably going to spend anywhere from 5 to 10 euros per person, really depending on where you're at, if you're in a really high traffic tourist area. But they will have the prices listed on the wall. So you can definitely look and see if you're trying to calculate, how much you're going to spend there. But do make sure that they weigh it because that's how they determine the price.
For the train strike, we can't sort of know ahead of time. Unfortunately, that's the issue with strikes. They're not extremely common, but they do happen all throughout the year. If they do happen, though, you get rerouted at the station, so you never get stranded. It's very rare that you just can't go through with your trip. So it's an annoying thing, an annoying part of the train travel, but there are solutions when you go to the station.
Yeah, and at the community, I keep it really updated over there when there's a strike because one of the things they do is you may know that they announce strikes in advance. So you get a little bit of advance notice, and I always post as soon as the strikes are announced. I post those at the Italia Pass community so that you can keep informed about that. All right. Does the subway go from from Termini station to the Vatican? So let's see. You could take the Termini, you could take the A line over, you could get over to the Vatican. You could get over to the Vatican to Prati neighborhood and walk from there. I mean, it doesn't take you like right to Vatican walls, but 5-10 minute walk. Lepanto, Ottaviano, those are a couple of nearby stations. And in the A line, in the metro, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've actually now added in parentheses next to the stop, like San Pietro, which is St. Peter's, or it'll say Vaticano. So it indicates what stations. There's 2 stations that are pretty close in walking distance to the Vatican. So yeah, that's a good question. It's the A line. And Romans are generally pretty helpful too. I've found, they're pretty helpful if you have a question that they don't mind.
For a family of 4, do we need 4 memberships? That's a good question. I would suggest for a family of 4 to get at least 2 memberships because as part of your Primo membership, when you buy train tickets with us, you do get Rail Aid, and Rail Aid covers 2 passengers. So if you get 2 memberships, you get those 4 passengers covered, and your Primo membership benefits can be stackable. So let's say that you book a tour that is $400. With 2 memberships, you would get 200 back, so 100 each on the first tour. So it really depends on how many tours you'd like to book and if it makes sense for you to pay the $99 twice and get all those memberships stacked. But sometimes it's good for when you're going to be booking multiple tours in multiple cities and multiple train tickets and that kind of thing.
Okay, will the Vatican and the Colosseum have restrooms? So inside the Vatican museums, there are restrooms. When you're inside the Colosseum, there are also restrooms when you're like inside the museum area, inside the actual Colosseum. When you're taking tours around, like say the Roman Forum adjacent to the Colosseum, when you're on these walking tours, there's not restrooms out in the outdoor spaces. So you kind of have to plan accordingly. But any of the kind of managed ticketed spaces that are museum-like spaces are going to have some public restrooms.
Yes, for the Borgia Gallery. That just means the days the gallery is open at all. It doesn't only apply to wine tasting and aperitivo. Um, so yes, it's limited, but keep an eye out, and there might be more dates down the line. I don't know when you're planning on visiting, but yeah, I don't know, Shelly, if you
Yeah,
want to.
at the current time, we offer the gallery 3 days a week. So unfortunately, if you're not going to be in Rome on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, or on a Sunday, then yeah, it's not 7 days a week at this point in time. So unfortunately, we just launched it, and so we won't be able to accommodate everyone, but we're trying to by doing it 3 days a week. Let's see. Okay, you can take this one with the private car. You probably
Yes, so we do will offer. So as a client with us, you can always get private car service. We can arrange it for you from Rome to Civitavecchia. Yes, we do it all the time. So all you have to do is email us and request that, and we can help you with that. Or you can even take a look on Italia Tours, and we do have that option. Do you need to book the FCO airport to Termini in advance? I usually say yes. I would say to account for at least 2 hours from the landing time to the time that you book your tickets from FCO to Termini, just to make sure that if there's any delays or you have any issues with customs or with your luggage, you're kind of covered. But it's a good idea, especially in the high season, to book it ahead of time to make sure you have the times that you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Are there benefits?
Yes, there are benefits. Sorry, Shelly, go ahead.
No. I was just reading the question. Are there benefits outside of Rome? We will be traveling in several areas. Go ahead.
100% outside of Rome, and in Rome, we have tours in every major cities and even in Tuscany. We're adding tours all the time. So if you want to take a look at Italian tours and see where you would like to apply your benefits, and also they apply to your train tickets all throughout Italy. So it's not only Rome for sure.
Many of the tours ask that you have a passport for ID. Is a passport really necessary?
Generally, yes, because they're a more official type of ID, because Italy is very different from North America, so they know that your passport is an actual ID. So I do generally, I don't know, Shelly, what you think, but for myself, when I travel, I do carry my passport with me just to make sure it's in a very safe space, obviously with your bag, but I do carry it with me just in case. It's always a good thing.
Yeah. Do you happen to know if a photocopy of the passport works for entrance for these tours? Because that's
I
sometimes
don't think so.
okay. So
Yeah, I
that would
don't
be
think
my
so.
only, like, if you're worried about carrying your passport because you're worried about theft or losing it, then oftentimes we would advise people to just carry your photocopy with you and keep the original back in your accommodations. But in this specific instance, where if it's a tour or some sort of entry where they do want proof of identity, then likely you're just better off carrying the original, just so that you don't get stuck not being able to get in somewhere because they want the original document. Italy loves its bureaucracy. They really do. Are credit cards acceptable for most restaurants and places? Yes. Yes. And I say that with a lot of enthusiasm, because when I moved here 20 years ago, that was not always the case. It was a very cash oriented culture, but we can definitely we can even use, they made a law recently or some sort of, maybe it was a city ordinance, where bar owners, coffee bar owners and tobacconists have to let you use your credit card. They used to did not like that because of the commissions that were charged, but now you can even do contactless or, your credit or debit card for your morning coffee, which is fantastic. We love that. So yeah, you shouldn't have any trouble. However, I do always recommend carry a small amount of cash with you. Do carry a small amount of cash with you as you're going around, because you might run into I need to get a water bottle, or I need to get a snack, or I need to get a little thing here. And you could run into like a place where it's a stand on the street where they don't take credit cards. So it's always a good idea to keep some cash on you.
For airport to Termini with luggage, can we use train or taxis better? So you can use both. Just, train is usually a little bit more of no, I wouldn't say a hassle, but it's less easy to travel with a lot of luggage. I recommend, if you have more than one piece of luggage per person, even just carry on and large luggage, to opt for taxi if you're able to. It's just more comfortable and there's more room to store your luggage.
I agree with that. Yeah, if you have a lot of luggage, the taxi is going to be your better option.
Or transfer if you prefer to be taken
True.
straight to your accommodations. You can let us know.
So this kind of goes back to what I was just saying. How much cash do you recommend keeping? How common is it for vendors to take cards? So yeah, it is common, and I would say if you wanted an amount, 20 euros, keep 20 euros in your wallet. You shouldn't need more than that if you're just going around, because by the time you're, out and about, you'll be going back to your accommodations. You can get more cash. But yeah, probably don't. I mean, depending on what you're going to buy, but I don't keep more than that on me going around, so.
I have a paper ticket from Rome to Florence, so we're checking out of the terminal. Not quite sure. All the tickets I know are bought online. If you bought it at the terminal, they should have instructions on how you should check in. I don't believe that for electronic tickets you can check in at the terminal. I think you'll have to do it on your device or wherever you bought the ticket, but through the email that you get from Trenitalia with your ticket. But not quite sure about this one.
Yeah, I think there may be still, it's just because I think it's so uncommon nowadays to have the paper ticket, but I did notice the last time I was at the airport that there still are machines, physical validation machines. So if you have a paper ticket and you see these little kiosks with these little machines, try to stick your ticket in that and get it stamped before you board, because that may be. But of course, at the station, just to get the final answer on this, there are info points or ticket offices. Just double check and ask, or even a conductor. There's a lot of trained personnel around the station. You can simply show them your paper ticket and say, what do I need to do? And they'll help you. All right.
I have already purchased train tickets for travel between cities. Will benefits be able to be applied? Yes. So if you become a member with us, we can retroactively apply your benefits to tickets you booked before becoming a member. That's no problem.
Will a passport card work for ID? Yes, I think. I don't see any reason why not.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm assuming. I mean, if it's an official government ID, then the
Yeah.
answer is yes. So,
Yes.
okay. All right. Wow. Well, we went through all of your questions. Thank you for all of your wonderful questions. And if you think of anything later on that you didn't ask now, please come on over to the Italia Pass community and you can ask over there. Happy to help. Oh, one
Yes.
last one here, and then we're going to take this last one and then close out for today. Could you share tips for receipts and VAT refunds at the airport? My friend just did this actually on her way back. She said it was very easy. Do you
I
know
think there are
any
points. I
tips?
think there's information points at airports specifically where you can get a form and fill it out.
Mhm.
That's what I think. I've never done it, but I think that's where your best bet is at the airport for sure.
Yeah, that's where my friend did it. She said it was really easy. So I think the best tip is just keep all of your receipts. And then when you get to the airport, go to that counter. You'll see it. It's pretty clearly marked, and they'll help you to complete whatever process you need to go through for your refund. Okay, so thank you so much again for attending. I hope that this was helpful for everyone. And again, we're here for you whenever you have questions. So please just reach out and have a wonderful trip to Rome. Buon viaggio. Look forward to hearing about your wonderful travels.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.